Our next guest was a member of the task force commissioned by then US President Bill Clinton to decide whether to let gay people serve in the US military. He sat in the room as his peers debated the gay issue, and he heard them say how sick and twisted they thought gay people were. Little did they know a closeted gay man was sitting in that very room. His name was Dr. Harold Hillman. He's a clinical psychologist, grew up in the projects of Washington, D.C., studied at Harvard, served as an officer in the US Air Force, came out at the age of 42, and now lives right here in Auckland. He, for decades, has coached CEOs and businesses on leadership and empathy and celebrating difference. He has written 6 books. The latest is called Passion and Purpose, Leading and Living Life with Greater Fulfillment. It's on shelves now. And Harold joined me in our Auckland studio earlier this evening, beginning by telling me a bit about what it was like to be a gay man, closeted, in the US Air Force in the 80s.
Heck, I thought I was an expert at being closeted. So I didn't think it would be a problem when I decided to join the Air Force. After completing my PhD as a clinical psychologist, a lot of people said, Harold, go into the U.S. military because you can get some leadership experience that will position you for bigger positions in the realm of mental health. And there was a critical shortage of medical doctors in the military. So I did. I applied. And sure enough, I was invited by the U.S. Air Force to come join. And I didn't anticipate question 13 on the application, Emile. The Department of Defense application, question 13. Mm-hmm. Have you ever initiated or voluntarily engaged in any homosexual activity? Yes or no?
Wow.
That was the question on the application.
On an application.
If you can imagine a job application in 2025.
When was this?
This was in 1986.
In 1986.
1986. And so it said, if yes, please provide details on the application. Of course, I had been used to denying that I was gay all my life, but I had never had to sign a form officially, signing that I was not a gay man.
What did you say on the form?
I put no. Because I didn't think it would be much of an issue. I denied being gay all my life. And so I just thought this was another opportunity to say no. And little did I know that it would take me deep, deep inside my soul.
Yeah.
To discover then 7 years later that I would much prefer to be a wonderfully imperfect human being than striving to be all things to all people, which was my aspiration when I was younger. I wanted to be the perfect son, husband, father, etc. And I didn't leave any room for me to just be me.
That is the most amazing story. And to hear you sort of laugh, I suppose at the ludicrousness of that question, that's where the laugh comes from, and to hear you say you were an expert at being closeted.
That's right.
That's right. That's with a twinkle in the eye now, I suppose.
That's right. When I grew up, you had to become expert real quickly in the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood in Washington, D.C., what was called a housing project. And then it evolved into a ghetto, and it was not a healthy thing to be gay in the black community. There was a guy, a teenager, maybe 5 years older than me. So when I was 12, this guy was openly gay as a teenager, and he lived a few houses up, and he got jumped regularly. Ambulance pulling up to his house to take him to the hospital. He was openly gay, and I would stand there knowing that I was a gay kid. I was 12, 13 years old, and I would be thinking, why do you put yourself out like that, dude? Why don't you just act like everybody else? That was my strategy, not to stand out. And I wish I could speak to him today. His name was Vincent Evans. And Vincent, as a 15-year-old kid, had the courage to be himself. And I often think about him. I often think about where he is today.
You joined the Air Force. You were brought onto a special task force.
That's right.
Then this is just a delicious dark irony, this one. Then President Clinton's task force to look at reversing the ban on gay people in the US Air Force. But this is while you were closeted. So nobody on the task force talking about gay people knew that you were gay.
Emile, if irony ever had an example, this is it. Okay, so I went into the Air Force for what was going to be 3 years. I just wanted it on my CV. Yeah. But then I loved it. I loved being an officer. I loved being a leader. So I got invited to teach at the Air Force Academy. And I won an award in 1992, Outstanding Military Educator in Behavioral Sciences. And wouldn't you know it, Bill Clinton and all of the Democrats in the 1992 primary ran on the pledge that if they were elected president, they would lift the ban on gays being able to serve. Mm. And sure enough, Bill Clinton was elected. And the day after his inauguration, Bill Clinton appointed a committee through his Secretary of Defense to determine if gay people could serve openly in the military. And I was invited. I was one of 47 military personnel from around the globe, U.S. military personnel. We were all selected because of our outstanding service. And yet, had I raised my hand and said, I'm a gay man, I would have been discharged that very day.
That very day. Is that right? That is just...
that very day.
It's just nuts to me. It's
so
just nuts to me. And it's not that long ago. It's 32 years ago that we're talking.
It's 32 years ago. And so there I sat for 3 months listening to pro-gay groups and anti-gay groups come in. It was supposed to be a consultation, but the 3 generals and the admiral made it clear on that first day to us to manage our expectations because it was not their plan to lift that ban.
Yeah, right.
So they wanted us to know right away, manage your expectations. This ban is not going to be lifted under us.
And this is where don't ask, don't tell us the compromise.
That's right. It's the compromise. And so the 3 generals and the admiral sent back through the Secretary of Defense this recommendation that the ban not be lifted. And President Clinton said, we've got to do something here. That was in March of 1993. It took until December for the U.S. public to hear that the result of that commission was this thing called Don't Ask, Don't Tell, wow. Which was, okay, we'll take the question off the application. We won't ask the question in the interview. But if you're gay in the military, you cannot come out.
Do not talk about it.
Do not talk about it. We don't. If you talk about being gay, if you acknowledge being gay, you're gone. And so there I was sitting there, and I got a medal for serving on that committee, a meritorious service medal for outstanding service to the United States. And there I stood with a medal, another medal, and I've never felt emptier in my life.
Did you feel, well, I wanted to ask about that. Did you feel any sense of achievement, or did you just feel hollow?
I felt hollow.
Right.
I felt empty. I thought, what have I done? Little did I know that that was going to be a defining moment and turning point for me. But I wasn't pleased with myself at all. And it was just a matter of a week or so later that I walked into my commander's office, Colonel Buron, and said to him, "Sir, I am a gay man, and I can no longer work for an employer that will not allow me to be a whole person."
Do you remember how he reacted?
He taught me a lot about leadership that day. Mm-hmm. Colonel Buron was required to get up out of his chair, go to the phone, and call security. And that I would have been discharged within 24 hours. Mm. That was, in the military, when you're discharged, you're discharged. Mm. There's no process related to that. And Colonel Buron, a white man, said to me, Major Hillman, he said, "Do I have to remind you that slavery used to be legal in this country? And it was if it wasn't for people who stood up and said, we're not going to stand for this, that law, hit the ground, real big time." And he said, "I believe that you are an outstanding officer and I will never out you. So I just want you to know right now, you stay in the military for as long as you want. I will never out you as your commander. And that taught me a lot about leadership. It's not about what's in black and white in terms of a law. It's about ethically what is the right thing to do.
You said you loved being in the Air Force and the military. What did you love about it?
I loved it. I loved the whole notion of leadership. I didn't know what leadership was until I became an officer. It's the idea of invigorating a person's spirit. We often make a distinction between managing people and leading people. Managing people is about the day-to-day. That you've got these tasks to deliver, and you have to deliver them by Friday, and so how are things tracking? Leadership is about the bigger picture. What is this in relation to? How is this going to make a difference 3 years from now? Sometimes it's important to just stand in front of people and tell them who we can be if we get there. So leadership is about invigorating an energy in people to really make a difference.
And I suppose not everybody is a chief executive or a managing director.
That's right.
But everybody has a responsibility, whether it's to a team, or whether it's for a team, or whether it's for yourself. You are responsible for yourself. And
that's right.
You show leadership, I suppose, in your own life and
that's
where
right.
you're taking yourself.
That's right. That is absolutely right. It's about what's the next chapter, what's the next curve that I have to get on, how do I keep stretching myself, how do I grow? That's what leadership is. It's about looking ahead and figuring out how you're going to overcome some hurdles to get to that next curve, that next chapter.
The book is all about finding and pursuing passion and purpose. What do you think is the difference between passion and aptitude, being good at something, being passionate about something versus being good at something?
Yeah. Aptitude and passion typically are intricately connected there. So passion is something that takes you into what's called flow. And so for me, it's writing. I started writing when I was 7 years old. I was writing stories then. And when I write now, particularly when I'm really immersed, I lose perspective on time. I look up and 3 hours have gone by. And it's the same for someone who may be in their garden, just really cultivating their garden. And next thing you know, it's 2 hours later. Or someone painting, or someone, an architect, mapping a design out. So it's something that you are fully immersed in. It invigorates your spirit. It invigorates your mind, your body, and your soul. And it's often it is aptitude, meaning that it's naturally wired. Some people are wired numerically. They make meaning in the world through numbers. Some people are wired verbally. And so they are good orators. Some people are wired in terms of art, music, engineering. In the book, I actually offer 10 different websites that I explored. I went and checked out a whole lot of them. They're all free, so you can go on. Any kid can go on, for that matter, and actually take a test to determine whether or not they just have this natural hard wiring for something that they may want to play to in terms of their strengths.
You talk about passion and the drive that passion can give somebody, and the idea that it is something that you allow yourself to be absorbed by.
Yeah.
And there is discussion here in New Zealand, I'm sure you know this, about raising the retirement age. And what happens psychologically when we retire is something that has interested you for a very long time.
Big time.
What are your thoughts? Share your thoughts.
Big time. I was drawn by a body of research that was pretty prevalent, certainly 20 years ago, and prevalent even 10 years ago. And that was that people who retire, that word, retirement, that's a big word. And for many people, 65 is that number. It's certainly the case in the U.S. It's the case in a number of countries around the world, 65. And there was this thing happening. There was this phenomenon where, particularly for men, a significant number of men dying between 65 and 70.
Yeah.
Because they had unplugged from the only source of energy that they had, whereas women were more vested across in terms of women who worked, but women who also were the CEOs of their households, who, raising the families and things like that.
Wider social networks.
Wider social networks, etc., versus men who had been singularly focused around that particular job. And so one of the reasons for writing the book is to basically say, don't wait until you're 65 to think about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. As a matter of fact, 65 is a number. I struggle with the word retirement because for some people, it's not just retiring from a job. It's retiring from life. It's not an intentional thing, but all of a sudden there's nothing to do.
And yet, not to challenge you on any of that, but and yet you say your passion, your driving force is writing. Yeah. You also say in your dedication this may be your last book.
That's right. I said that. I said that. I've told a number of people that, Emile, and so if I do write a seventh book, I think the title will be P.S. Postscript.
Harold, just finally on this, and this is perhaps a slightly morbid way to end, but you don't want to. Nobody wants to die with regrets, and in the book you refer to the top 5 regrets of the dying, which is a book by Bronnie Ware.
Bronnie Ware.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Tell me what those big regrets are.
They are the 5 regrets. They largely from the male patients that she saw in palliative care. I wish I had pursued my own dream versus trying to please others. I wish that I had allowed myself to be happier. And for many people, in their 20s and 30s, happiness is associated with quantity. When we end up in our 40s and 50s and 60s, happiness is associated with quality of life. And so people regretting that they hadn't enjoyed themselves around happiness. I wish I had spent more time with family and friends. Those sort of the basic things that energize you, but yet parking them there. And so my reason for that was one of my main reasons for writing the book is to try to mitigate regrets at the end of one's life associated with quality. Because quality of connection, quality of relationships, and those types of things.
The book is called Passion and Purpose, Leading and Living Life with Greater Fulfillment. The author is Harold Hillman. Harold, lovely chatting to you. Thanks for coming in.
Wonderful to see you, Emile.